Hello and welcome to Gabbit Media. I'm Grant Abbott and today we're looking at animation number 11, which was Superhero. So I'm quite pleased with how this turned out. So you can see I put a bit of grease pencil in there today. I'm quite pleased with myself. It was more tricky than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be fairly straightforward, but it wasn't. I'm not still up to date on layers and how that's all working, but we'll get there. But it's nice to try new things and to test these things out, see how they work, get used to them, and this is the avenue and pathway to do that. Pathway? But it's the type of thing, the type of event, challenge that's suitable for testing things out and learning new things. So I thought I'd keep it nice and simple. So our superhero sort of hears a scream in the distance, and so I thought the looking up and then looking back down as if the ears sort of pointed, listening out, and then zooming off into the air. And that's where I thought, at first I thought a smoke simulation, but Blender was being glitchy, Blender 2.8. I'm still not happy with the smoke simulation in Blender 2.8. It does seem really glitchy. Maybe it's just my hardware or something, but not having lots of luck with that, and it did crash on me, which is quite rare, but it's usually something like smoke simulation or cloth simulation or something like that that makes it crash. So I thought it's a perfect opportunity to try out Grease Pencil and see how I'd get on. So it's nice and simple, and it's just general blocking out at the moment, as per usual. And that blocking out stage is so key, isn't it? If that goes wrong and the timing's off, then when you come to sort of do the detailed aspect, the splining or whatever people call it, then that gets loads tougher. So getting that blocking out stage perfect in terms of blocking out, then sorting your timing out, is really important. And actually, I did a tiny bit of editing on the timing at the end in Premiere, so I just sort of shortened the bit where he sort of looks up as he hears the scream, because it seemed alright at the time, sort of look up like this, but actually you're more alert when you suddenly hear a scream like that. So that's the thinking anyway. There were some funny issues that I don't know whether you find this when you're animating, but both the waist, the hips and the feet are sort of moved in the air at the same time, but the feet seem to sort of move into the hips for some reason, and there was obviously something wrong with my curves, and I went into the curve editor later to try and fix that, but it was more problematic than I thought. And it's always little bits like that that are quite tricky and not glitchy, but sort of weird when you're working with animation. Sometimes it just does strange things. And I wanted to have the hips graph in view whilst editing the feet, so I thought I'd lock that channel so I could see it at least, and then move the other graph so they were completely coinciding. But I forgot that I locked that channel, and then my animation was not, my keyframes weren't copying and moving later on. So watch out for those things. Really common that I make those sort of errors where I've hidden something in the graph editor and I try and copy and paste keyframes, or locked a channel and try and copy and paste keyframes, and you're thinking, well, why is it not copying? And that's one of the reasons quite often. So hopefully you can sort of see the progression that's happening here. Hopefully, I feel like I'm getting better all the time, slowly but surely, and this time I only spent about an hour and a half sort of solid recording time anyway, so certainly a bit outside that where I was testing out smoke simulation, testing the grease pencil, because I'd never actually used grease pencil before. I don't know, there's something about Blender, isn't there? Whereas you can go into something like Photoshop, Krita, and you sort of figure out the layers and things pretty easily. But Blender, I don't know, I suppose because it's a program that's not made for 2D, they're sort of making it into a 2D program, an aspect of it. So it doesn't quite, it's just not intuitive. And so I made a grease pencil object, and I thought I'd be able to move that around easily, but it wasn't that straightforward. And then I thought, well, if I make another layer, but actually I need to make another grease pencil object rather than another grease pencil layer, because anything I did with transparencies and moving to that grease pencil object was affecting all the layers, which is sort of obvious when now I think about it, but it wasn't as obvious to a sort of beginner like myself. So it did take a little bit of time, the grease pencil. But it was really nice to be able to draw in 3D. Is lovely. It does take a bit of time getting used to where you are drawing, and it does offer options that you can draw on the object origin point. So I was top down when I was doing the sort of circles that sort of expanded out. And that was easy enough, and then I wanted to do the lines, the sort of whooshing lines up, so I created a new object for that, new grease pencil object, and then went to draw that and drew them sort of two going up that way, then turn to side view, two going up that way, and it looked nice in 3D. It was surprising, so 2D looking 3D, and it really worked. You can see me working on it here. I went for sort of a thick ink pen, so it's quite very simplistic, but it just adds that element of movement and fun. It would have been nice to have some motion blur as well, in terms of the actual character moving up, but obviously it doesn't do that. So I just obviously went for this sort of these grease pencil marks instead, which Cycles doesn't do. So in fact, does grease pencil render in Cycles? Do you know? I assumed it's all Eevee, but it's probably in Cycles as well, isn't it? So I'm pooling my ignorance here. Hopefully it's all making sense. Now, what I found really awkward was going back into one of my grease pencil objects and erasing something, because there was a funny little dot that I'd obviously, when I'm using my graphics tablet, occasionally if I forget to turn touch off, it creates little blobs around the place from my hand, even if I've got a glove on. So I went to erase those, but I couldn't find the right grease pencil object that it was on, and it was saying they're all empty, and so it's obviously something I'm doing wrong, and it takes a bit of getting used to. But it's well worth trying these things out, having a go, and integrating 2D and 3D graphics. I think that's really going to be quite a big thing in sort of Blender's future, is sort of grease pencil combined with the sort of 3D graphics as well, because it just seems, I've seen sort of zapping lasers and things like that. There's someone who did a tutorial on that. I can't remember who it was, but they've got some good tutorials, and they did some 3D laser guns, but zapping lasers were with grease pencil. I thought, oh, that's a great idea, and that sort of made me think perhaps I can do it here, and which I think it worked. I'm quite pleased with how that grease pencil bit turned out, even though it is very short, as you can see just here. And there we go. Anyway, here's some of your work as usual. Well done, Darren Bruno. Some crazy dancing happening, which is nice to see. It was a tough one, dance, wasn't it? Maybe it's going to be the toughest, and I didn't realise. Sort of put it first out of the sort of bigger ones, but I think dance is going to be one of the toughest. A very sort of surreal one there, very interesting. I like that one, that's very smooth. I would have liked it to end, the end to be a bit longer. Marcus doing his Joker dances, lovely work. Mohammed Abdullah doing Michael Jackson, and you can probably hear it in the background. I can't hear the audio because I turn it off from my mic, but some lovely stuff going on there. Well done. And this was massive, this one. It was really long. I had to cut it down, I'm afraid, because there was a whole bit where he was talking into the mic. Go and check it out for yourselves. But it must have taken a long time. So it's a very good Shrek model as well. It deforms really nicely, so you'll have to tell us where you got that one from. I can't remember who it is because you haven't put your name on it in terms of it on the actual screen, and I'm really bad for remembering names that I read. Sorry about that. Here's Steve McIntyre's with his funny. Is it a coyote? I think I don't know, but very interesting dance and interesting weighting happening there. He's doing very well with his arms. Good arm strength. There's a few from last session with Excited and things as well. Some really good ones. A nice lot of effort going into that one as well. And the chicken dance that is from Devilishly Dutch. Nice work there. Another Michael Jackson one, I think, although I can't hear the audio, but it looks very Michael Jackson-y. It looks really good. Lighting was good there as well. This is a really nice angry one. They're sort of joining us late, Sean Fernie. Love it. Really nice style you got there with the textures as well. And Lord Diego doing a massively long animation here again. It looks really good. There's loads of effort got into this, and obviously the classic Thriller dance. The Michael Jackson model is quite cool as well. Where do you find these things? Where do people find all these cool models? It looks brilliant. Or did you create this yourself? I'd be interested to know. I like this bit. I think this bit's particularly good. The sort of head moving. There's Huion, I can't remember your name now, but good stuff as always. And this chap here, always forget your name as well. Really nice, that one. That was a really good one. Very well done. Seeing some improvements there as well. Nice one here from Mark Herman. I think where is it? Yeah, there's wiggly shoulders, looks quite funny, that one. And Kevin, always doing really well with his work. I do like the model that he's got there as well. Is that your own model, Kevin? I seem to remember you saying something like that, but I can't quite off the top of my head remember. So anyway, there we go. There's the final piece. Hope you're still enjoying it. I know there's sort of a couple of people may have dropped out, and that's sort of, it's getting tougher now. We get to these sort of more tricky ones, but try and keep it simple. Just practice. Maybe give yourself a time limit if you have to. Don't worry or stress about it. It's the taking part and learning that's important. So thanks for watching. Thanks for all the support, and happy animating, and I will see you next time.